Well, good morning, parishioners and friends of St. John's. My name is Peter Floyd. I'm the rector of St. John's Episcopal Church here in Charlotte. I'm here with John Horn. He's our senior warden, and we're just gathering together to film another State of the Church forum because we know, well, it's been a while since we did this. A lot has happened. A lot is sort of in the works and plans for the fall. We just thought we would have an opportunity to share what's going on, to answer some questions that we were given by parishioners beforehand, and to just hopefully help us all feel a little bit more connected and more knowledgeable about what's happening at St. John's behind the scenes. In fact, there's so much going on that we decided the best way to do this was to not just have one video, but to actually have 3 videos. So John and I are going to do this initial video about the sort of general topics that are happening around St. John's, topics like, when are we all going to get back in worship, what's happening, with formation and our youth and that sort of thing. Then we're going to have another video about the buildings and grounds, because that's its own topic with the campaign and everything that happened there. And then a final video about our finances and some of the sort of government loans and things that have happened to help us. And that gets a bit more complicated. So John and I decided we would invite other people to help us have those conversations because it would just be easier. So I will open it up here with a question to John, which came to us from a parishioner who just simply wanted to know what the Vestry's priorities are for the remainder of 2020. There's still some time left. We're not out of this yet. We hope there'll be a vaccine at some point. Probably going to be more like beginning of next year. But John, how would you like to answer that question about the priorities of the Vestry for the remainder of the year?
Well, first of all, let me say good morning to everybody and thank you for joining Peter and I. So I think it's important, first of all, to state that the Vestry has been meeting continually every month since the pandemic. I think I mentioned last time, and it just blows my mind that the last time that we were physically together as a Vestry group was back in February. And we've had more Zoom meetings, every month since then. So the form of our communication is just like Peter and I here, sitting here talking with each other and maintaining the agenda items, etc. But I would say that the first priority for the Vestry has actually been the safety and the well-being of our church staff and our clergy during these unprecedented times. The safety of all of us, the well-being of us has really been top of mind for the Vestry. And then right behind that is, the most important aspect of the Vestry's work is the financial well-being of St. John's. And I'm really pleased to report that financially, we are where we should be at this point within our calendar year. Maybe we're just slightly ahead of budget, but I'm going to let Dan speak more specifically about that. But putting aside the PPP loan, our parishioners have continued to fulfill their pledge commitment. So we are so grateful to all of our parishioners for that commitment and that pledge offering. So financially, I can report that St. John's is in a good position. Then right behind that would be our third priority, which is the continued worship aspect of St. John's, is meeting the expectations of all of our parishioners. And that has been challenging, as Peter, you well know. We are still not allowed to be inside the nave and congregate together. Your leadership, if I may say this, you've been a pioneer within the Diocese of North Carolina. It's been interesting, and how can I put this? It's been motivational to be kind of by your side and see how you've pushed the bishop to allow St. John's to have outdoor worship. You've said to us many times and to the parishioners that we've got these wonderful gardens that we can take advantage of. And ultimately, you were given permission to do a trial run of an outdoor worship, and that was accepted and passed. And now we're doing outdoor worship, 3 times per week, once on a Wednesday, twice on Sunday. So I think we're certainly fulfilling as best we can at this point in time the worship expectations of our parishioners. And then finally, coming into 2020, one of our big projects was the Rejuvenate of St. John's. And once again, so many of our parishioners stepped up and made significant contributions. And I'm really pleased to report that not only has the stained glass window work been completed, but you're going to hear from David Dwyer also later in this video series of all the work being done by the Property and Grounds Committee. And most recently, the Vestry approved the next phase of 8 projects to be investigated further, more due diligence work to be done, obtaining quotations specific to those initial projects. And then once they are approved, then those 8 projects can move forward. So the Vestry has been doing a lot of work, and we will continue to work in that vein.
Awesome. Thanks, John. I think people also sort of wanted to know more specifically, when are we going to get back together? I mean, what's the timeline on this thing? And of course, if I could answer that, I'd be on, the news channels letting everyone know, because obviously it's not just St. John's that's, having a struggle. It's anybody who meets indoors in a building is struggling. Schools are struggling, businesses are struggling, restaurants, bars, churches, sports arenas, football. I mean, it's just, the world is having a real difficulty. So we're, of course, impacted by that as well. But for some of you may know, the diocesan plan initially had 4 stages. Now it has 5. They've taken stage 1 and split it into A and B. Stage 1 was where we were in the beginning of things. It was online worship only, so doing the video work, and thank God for Jamie, and the quality of our video work has just been absolutely amazing, especially if you just compare it to others. It's just really been phenomenal. So I'm so grateful for his work and for all of the people who are working and contributing and doing that work to help us stay connected. It's just a blessing. So that's phase 1. Phase 1 in terms of small groups meant, of course, meeting online. And I know a lot of small groups there are Bible studies meeting online. A lot of Brad's contemplative groups are meeting online. The ECW meets online on a weekly basis. So it's been amazing to see the St. John's community sort of go digital. It's not great. I don't think anybody really likes it as much as what we had before, but it's been wonderful to have that technology to keep us going. So that was phase 1. Of course, phase 2 is getting back in our building in small numbers. So phase 1.5, that's what the diocese has done, is getting back in person in small numbers, but doing it outdoors where we know things are well ventilated and safe.
Right.
So just last week, the diocese allowed all the parishes, not just St. John's, who had special permission as sort of a beta tester, but all of the churches are now able to get together in person and do outdoor worship in small groups, and to have small group meetings like Bible studies and other groups outside meeting. We have our youth who are meeting outside as we speak. We have some other groups who are interested in sort of coming back, maybe some Bible studies and things. We aren't doing outside groups at this point. That just opens up to a more complex situation, but any sort of internal St. John's group that wants to meet outdoors, they can certainly reach out to me and we can work on making that happen. So, but when do we get to phase 2? There's no way to know. I think it's going to be a really long time. I think we can expect a surge of cases from the schools and colleges and things coming back. We're seeing that in the news now. That's going to make things more difficult. It may, there's rumor that maybe there'll be a vaccine in November, December. Maybe we'll get to it January, February, We'll see. I hope that we get out of this sooner rather than later, but we will just continue to do the work God has called us to do, continue to be creative and inventive about how we move forward. Specifically,
so Peter,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but when we speak about getting back into the church, the one season clearly that is on top of people's minds, and it's so important to us as Episcopalians, is the Advent season and Christmas. So What are your thoughts in regard to this upcoming season?
Yeah. And, part of what makes Advent and Christmas a challenge is the weather gets a little bit yuckier. I mean, I'm glad I'm not in Wisconsin right now where I've been prior. Um, so maybe we could do some things outside, but obviously that becomes a bit more of a challenge. So I think we're probably going to wind up, if all things being equal, if the numbers get better, maybe we'll be in phase 2 and we can do some small group stuff inside. If it doesn't, then it may be still doing online services. But the hope is to do some work in the garden to make that a place where people can come and have a bit of an outdoor Advent experience when their schedule allows. We're thinking of putting up some sort of a Christmas tree where people could leave an ornament or a prayer. We're thinking about Christmas, about decorating, with some sort of hanging lights or other things. The garden committee is sort of noodling around some ideas about what it might do to get some people to help them decorate the garden so it can be this sort of beautiful sacred place where people can come in the Advent season to be with God, even if it's just for a prayer walk or with a small group if the weather's nice. So hopefully that will happen. We're looking at Christmas Eve. Obviously, that's the big deal, right? I mean,
Correct.
Christmas Eve at St. John's is just amazing. And if we can't be indoors, then we're thinking maybe we could do some sort of Christmas caroling in the garden, maybe social distance Christmas carolers. Maybe we have some hot cider, some live nativity scenes that are sort of broken up in a way where people won't congregate when we're having to sort of think about what it might be like to walk through this sort of, I think, Dickens village in the garden kind of thing, and what might that look like. So I think those are some really good creative ideas to help us get in the Christmas spirit. Maybe people have little candles and that sort of thing, and a lot of good ideas are being floated around out there right now. So if you think of something that would be amazing, let me know, and we can sort of plug that in our thinking. But for now, we're committed to having some sort of good Christmas experience, weather permitting, on Christmas Eve, and having the garden open as a place of a refuge and holiness in the time of Advent. Advent is a time of expectation and waiting, and we all know we have this great thing that we're waiting for our ability to get back together. So I hope the Advent season sees some real progress as we move forward in that long hope of coming back together again.
And I think what you've just described, Peter, is something actually to kind of look forward to. It sounds romantic to me for families celebrating Christmas that way. And certainly when you mentioned Dickens, you've touched a little bit of me, coming all the way from England originally. So you touch a little bit of home here. So I think that's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
If I may, I move on to another subject that people have also been speaking about, is the work of the EYC. People have also talked about confirmation, baptisms. Maybe, Peter, you can just share where we are in that regard.
Yeah, a lot of things are happening around our children's and youth programming. We might actually start with the preschool, the sort of youngest kids. The plan right now is to sort of wait and see what's happening with other preschools. That was our sort of strategic thinking. There are some preschools who are opening. We have plans to open our preschool, but our hope is to open it a little later in September so that we can see what happens with other schools. We just really don't know what the virus is going to do in some of those environments. There's sort of rumor that it does better with younger children, and I'm going to hope that that's true. Mm-hmm. So if all things work out well, we have some really good creative plans with our preschool to get that open on time, get that open in general, and so that those kids can get back into being with one another in that environment. And for the parents and people of our preschool who enjoy that program can be a part of it once again. It'll look a little different. The kids will be coming in through the outside door to their classroom. All of the classrooms have these outside doors. So the kids will be isolated to their own group, a lot of playing outside, that sort of thing. But hopefully that'll work out where that'll be able to be opened. And moving forward from there, there's some exciting plans about with our children, the sort of older elementary school aged children. If you actually go to the kiosk now, like you're going to sign up for an outdoor service, you'll see way down on September 6th that there's a slot there to sign up for Children's Chapel. So the thinking is that if you're a parent, you have a kid that would be that children's chapel age, that you can bring your sign up for your family to attend the outdoor worship, and then sign your child up to attend the children's chapel. When you come, they'll go to a separate area of the garden and be with Matt and some volunteers who will do the whole mass social distance thing, and they'll hear a sort of age appropriate worship experience in that place, and then the parent will be over there doing the regular outdoor worship experience in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that format will work well as we move forward into the fall when the weather is actually nice, and then as it turns winter, well, it's anybody's guess at that point. So that's some great ideas for the children to be able to get back together. I know Matt is also working on some better online content to do Sunday school at home, that sort of thing. So just stay tuned for more of those things, but some good creative ideas. And then, of course, moving forward, even more forward to our EYC. The EYC is getting together. They're breaking up into small groups. They're doing a lot of outdoor activities. There's a lot of creative games and ideas that you can do to sort of keep kids apart from one another and still have fun. They can still have conversations. We realized that we were thinking a group of like 25, and in the diocese said 15. Even 15 people social distance in a big circle, it's outside, challenge. It's kind of hard to hear. So we're sort of making it even smaller so that some of those groups can work and be separate by themselves. But it's all working. It's all fulfilling a need that all people have, including our youth, to just have a sense of community and togetherness. It's especially important for kids, especially since these kids aren't in school and aren't around other children,
right? Many
of them. And so now they're going to have this opportunity to at least come to EYC and do some socialization, which is really, really needed. In terms of confirmation, typically you have your sort of classic confirmation class. Well, we still have the old confirmation class, which never got confirmed. And the bishops are telling us that we're really not going to start confirmation worship services until we're really able to get back together again at the very end of the pandemic. Part of the problem with that is if you have a bishop who everybody wants to talk to, going from church to church to church, if they wind up getting this thing and not knowing it, then they just wind up spreading it lovingly around to all these churches, and that would be really unfortunate.
Right.
So it's going to be a while. So the thinking is that we're just going to delay confirmation and do a larger confirmation group further down the road and try to get kids caught up. Depending on when we come out of this, we may be creative and maybe we do a shorter or modified kind of confirmation experience. But at some point, we'll get back on track. But we just thought it was too much with everything else that's going on to try to cram that in with all the other things that are happening. So it'll all get back. And the people who are ready to be confirmed can be as soon as the bishops flip the switch and turn that back on. There has been some conversation about regional confirmations. Now, this isn't something you're used to in North Carolina, but in Colorado, this was very commonplace. There was one bishop for the entire state of Colorado. So obviously that person didn't go to every parish once a year, right? So you would go to one region a year, and then all the churches would go to a big church, and they would have all their confirmations happen at one service. So that may be what we're looking at here, is maybe St. John's would host some of the smaller congregations around us. There'd be 3 or 4 churches with us at a special service where a lot of people get confirmed. Then we'll have a big barbecue or something afterwards and big celebration and that sort of thing. So that's really the sort of thinking on some of those sort of children's programming. I know one thing worth mentioning is that the youth are planning, because they have to plan so far in advance. They are planning for mission retreats and that sort of thing, mission trips, retreats for like February, March. So they're thinking, surely we'll be out by then. I hope so.
9 months away.
That far ahead and doing some planning, reserving buses and that sort of stuff, with the hope that those things will get back on track by the spring. And if they're not, of course, we can just cancel our reservation. But that's the hope for some of that stuff.
Good.
Yeah.
And then, Peter, moving on from the youth aspect of the church, adult formation.
Yeah.
Brad has been very influential in some of the programs that he's put forth. So again, that's very important to the adult side of the church. So the question is, what is the thinking on a full program for the adults?
Yeah. I think so many people miss, that sort of social interaction they had after church. I mean, coffee hour and chatting around the adult forum, having a good topic, being educated. We're really doing well in that way before the pandemic.
Mm.
And we had this great conversation about racism, and we had, what's getting to know Charlotte again, and we had some of these different issues that had come up about, socioeconomic issues, and we had all these speakers come in, and so some of that work was just sort of wrapping up when the pandemic hit. And so the thought was, well, what can we do in this environment with this sort of digital media? So the hope is when the fall starts to start after that sort of 10 o'clock service airs digitally, to be able to host a Zoom meeting where people can log in if they're interested and have a conversation around a topic. We may have the topic be about the lessons, the liturgical readings for the day, the sermon. So that might be an interesting thing to have a conversation around that topic. If there's something relevant going on, in our world that we would rather divert to, that we want to have a topic around a particular theological point about something that's going on, we may choose to sort of shift gears and talk about what's a Christian response to that topic. I don't know why, but for some reason, I think that 2020 may have more in store for us. Who knows? So we may have some opportunities to sort of gather and sort of be with one another in a way where we can have conversations. And I think that would be helpful to have sort of a Zoom kind of adult forum coffee hour experience. So look for that to happen as well. And of course, Brad continues to do the ongoing work of the daily office. That will continue to happen. The ongoing work of his Lectio Divina. There's a morning Bible study that meets via Zoom. A centering prayer group continues to meet. And even now, there's also sort of a group that's starting to form. There's sort of a steering committee, if you will, working on how do we continue to follow up from some of those great conversations we were having in the adult forum at the end of the sort of spring, or at the end of the spring when all this sort of hit.
The pandemic hit.
Yeah, where do we go from there? I mean, I know that we had talked about some of those issues. So there's some people who just don't want to let that just fade into nothingness. They want to continue to have conversation about how do we learn more? How can we have some action about that, both in our own spiritual lives and in the world? So those steering committees sort of forming. So hopefully you'll hear more about ways to be involved in that if that's something that you're interested in. So
I believe that Jackie Johns is partnering with Brad on that particular subject.
Correct. And of course, the work of stewardship continues. The work of, stewardship does continue, but the work of outreach continues and giving, helping people. We're actually filming this on a Wednesday outside my office right now. Hagar's Basket is doing their work and helping people who are doing drive-through style. They're not coming into the building, but they have modified things to do this in a drive-through way. And of course, the youth have been out helping out at Galilee, and we've collected money and we've collected items. And so all of that wonderful work continues. Pastoral care continues. It's mostly by phone right now, but in this stage 1B, we are allowed to see parishioners outdoors. So if you would like to have a conversation with Brad or I or Matt or one of the ministers here at St. John's, you can reach out to us and we can have some conversations with you as well. I think I forgot to talk about baptism. I know you had mentioned that. We're actually having our first baptism in like forever on Saturday. It'll be an outdoor baptism. We're going to do several, and we're going to put that into the video for All Saints Day. So we typically have baptisms on All Saints Day, but now we're going to do a bunch of sort of little private baptisms. Well, private in person, but then making them public by putting them into the worship service that's public on All Saints Day. So
perfect.
Just really trying to be creative about how can you do all this stuff, and how do you do a baptism when you're supposed to socially distance? And no, it is not with a squirt gun. I know, that's been a joke. It's a funny joke, but no, it will be me sort of holding my arm out and baptizing it at a distance as best we can. So. Lots of challenges.
Challenging times, to say the least.
To work out, but we're making it happen. We're working it out. We're doing the best we can to hold ourselves together as a community, because it's so important. The work of being community is so important to us all, especially when there's challenges that we face.
Right.
So I'm happy to know that we are continuing to do that work in a way that's blessing us.
Well, we're certainly far from being stagnant.
Yeah, that's right.
Very much so.
And I think really the last question was for you, John, which is just, how do you think this is going to impact St. John's in the long run? A lot of people sort of wanting to know, what's it look like when we come out of this? How could this impact us, for years to come? What are we thinking about what the sort of, when this emerges and it's all said and done, what changes will have happened as a result of it?
Well, I think first of all, Peter, the day that we can open up the church and all go back inside the nave as a regular group of parishioners, is going to be a party time. Episcopalians like the parties, so I can see one big celebration of opening the doors of worship and all going into the nave. But seriously, yes, obviously that's going to be a big time, is to go back into the nave. But moving on from there, when you think in terms of online streaming, and we were offering that prior to COVID-19. I always remember a family from Africa, from Uganda, that reached out, and they made a comment about, I found St. John's, Charlotte, on an online streaming. So I think about that, and I think that has to continue. I don't think we can just simply stop online streaming. I think Zoom, what you and I are doing right here, I think Zoom has become a staple word in a lot of lives of people today, and especially the parishioners of St. John. So moving forward, I see technology as being an important part of the worship that St. John's offers. It may need an investment to simply use an iPhone, and I've seen, Peter, you do that, to take video and then to put it up on the Realm, for example. I think we need to move beyond that and offer much greater degree of online streaming. As I mentioned, Zoom. So I see technology certainly being a continued part of the worship side of St. John's. Speaking about this family in Africa, coming much closer to home, we've had, I believe I'm correct in saying, 5 new families join St. John's since the pandemic. I think that's an element of one looking for Jesus to be an important part of their life, but I also think it's part of the media. Our ability to reach out beyond the 4 walls of St. John's. It's boundless, right? And I think we're finding new families. We're appealing to new families, clearly. And here we are. And as I mentioned just now, St. John's is far from stagnant. We're actually growing as a church and as a family during these very challenging times. So I think that's wonderful, and I hope it continues. And speaking of growth, I would be amiss if I just didn't mention that coming up is the next stewardship time. Where did the year go? 12 months has gone by really quickly, and September is the start of the stewardship campaign, and it will be foremost and top of mind, certainly of myself and a colleague of mine, Merrill Gowdy. Merrill and I are going to co-chair the ministry of stewardship on behalf of St. John's. So there's certainly more to come on that subject. So I see a wonderful future for St. John's, a wonderful future.
Yeah, I think that you're right about the whole technology piece. I think that figuring out how to integrate it into in-person things is important. I know that Zoom has things called Zoom rooms, and there's different kinds of technology so that you can be both have a group in person and have a few people joining online. There are people who don't like to drive at night, but would still like to come, to some in-person Bible studies and things that happen on Wednesday night, and that sort of thing. I can see them being used for vestry meetings and, other sort of committee meetings when people are traveling. That's a great way to connect in person. And I do think if you go back, if you're so inclined to look at some of the really old videos of where we live streamed before the pandemic, you'll see a real lack of quality compared to what we're doing now. So maybe doing some upgrading of our current system, which Jamie's looked at, and it's expensive to upgrade that stuff so that it can be really good camera angles, really good focus, and we can have it be the kind of quality experience that we currently have.
Right.
But I think that's important. I think people are finding that that's a meaningful way to stay connected to the church. And now, people know how to use it too, whereas before, really wasn't something that was on our radar too much.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
I'm hopeful that if we have a good stewardship season, and we were able to set a good budget for 2021, that will emerge from this maybe stronger than ever.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, a lot of that remains to be seen. So I can do what Christians do, which is to live a life of hope and see how things emerge as God opens that for us.
Exactly. Excellent. Well, Peter, thank you for your time. I enjoyed sitting here having this conversation with you, and I'm sure our parishioners really do appreciate your time and your energy as well, and the ability to communicate to all of us. It's so important.
It's been an interesting road to walk down, not one I think anybody thought we'd be going down this year, and who knows what's left.
Right.
But I'm so appreciative of the love and just sort of encouragement that people have sent to me, parishioners sending me notes and just emails and just calling, reaching out and saying thank you. And that's been a real blessing. So thanks to all of those parishioners who have done that and have helped give us the encouragement to keep moving forward. It really is a blessing. And really, I think that is it. I know that we have a couple other videos to record on some other topics, so I look forward to sitting down with those people and go from there.
Peter, thank you. And maybe you can just close this up with just a brief prayer for us.
I'd be happy to.
If you wouldn't mind.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for the community of St. John's and for the blessing it is to all of our lives in whatever way we're able to connect to it. Bless us in this time. Bless us in our journey. And bless us as we're able to come out of this period of quarantine and reconnect to one another. Give us the wisdom and the ability to do what you've called us to do now, and the grace to continue to live out that mission once this is complete. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Bless you, John.
Bless you
so
too.
much.
Thank you.